Okay, so this time you guys have sent in a real doozy, a real ethical puzzle.
Yeah.
And it's a scenario that we know a lot of people are talking about.
Right.
What happens when you find out your best friend's cheating?
Well,
Do you tell their partner and risk the friendship?
right.
Or do you stay silent and potentially let someone get hurt?
Hmm.
So in this deep dive, we are going to unpack all the really thorny questions
Yeah.
surrounding loyalty, honesty, and of course the fallout of infidelity.
It's interesting because this situation really forces us to look at the tension between our values.
Yeah,
On the one hand, honesty and transparency are so important,
right.
especially in relationships.
Naturally.
But then on the other hand, we value loyalty to our friends.
Right.
And nobody wants to be responsible for completely blowing up someone's life.
Exactly. And the source that you shared with us really digs into that.
Mm.
It lays out the arguments for revealing the infidelity.
Right.
And then also the arguments for keeping it a secret.
Yeah, it's like a moral compass that's pointing in two opposite directions
I like that.
at the same time.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is tough. And what makes this even more complex is that there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
The right decision really depends on all the tiny little details of the circumstances.
That's text.
Yeah, exactly. And the source actually emphasizes that
Uh-huh.
the nature of your friend's relationship.
Yeah.
Is it a committed partnership?
Right.
Are there already suspicions brewing under the surface?
Exactly.
Those things really change things.
Completely changed the landscape.
And then there's your own relationship
Oh, yeah?
with both your friend and their partner.
Uh-huh.
Are you close to both of them?
Right.
Do you feel like you owe one more than the other?
Yeah. Do you have a sense of responsibility?
Talk about pressure.
It's like you're standing in this web
Yeah?
at the center, and each thread is a different connection
Wow.
and responsibility
I like that a lot.
that you have to think about.
So let's start untangling this. Let's look at the arguments for telling the partner.
Okay.
The source lays out 3 main points.
Hmm.
The first one is honesty and transparency,
Okay.
protecting the partner from further harm,
Hmm.
and then this sense of moral responsibility that you have.
And that idea of a moral obligation is really powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that you found out your friend was being financially scammed.
Oh.
You'd feel like you had to tell them.
Oh, for sure.
Well, some people argue that infidelity is a form of emotional betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
So it triggers that same sense of I need to protect the person who's being harmed.
Yeah, that's a really powerful analogy.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about what are the consequences of keeping quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there's the other side.
Right.
The arguments for keeping the secret.
Yeah.
The source really emphasizes how important loyalty is to your friend.
Right.
And recognizing that if you reveal this secret, you could really damage
Yes.
your relationship beyond repair.
And relationships are never simple.
No, they're not.
It's entirely possible there are all these things going on
Right.
that you as an outsider just don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's trouble in paradise that you haven't seen, or maybe your friend's going through something incredibly difficult
Yeah.
that led them to make this mistake.
Right. It's like they say,
Yeah.
you never really know what goes on behind closed doors.
Exactly.
And if you burst in with this information, you could do more harm than good.
Right.
So you're really walking a tightrope here.
Yeah. And on top of all of that, just think about the potential emotional fallout
Oh.
for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Are you prepared to deal with the anger, the hurt,
Right.
the potential for a complete implosion
Wow.
of the relationship?
That is heavy.
Yeah.
That is a really heavy burden to carry.
It is.
So with all these arguments swirling around,
Yeah.
how do you even begin to figure out what to do?
Right.
Thankfully, the source gives us a little bit of a roadmap.
Oh, yeah.
It gives us a way to approach this really, really complex situation.
I like it.
So it all starts with looking inward.
Mm-hmm.
The source really encourages you to reflect on your own motives.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Right. Are you doing this out of concern for the partner?
Yeah.
Or is it maybe anger
Ooh.
or resentment toward your friend?
Yeah.
Or maybe even a sense of self-righteousness.
That's good.
I'm better than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, before you even think about talking to anyone else,
Right.
you've got to have a conversation with yourself.
Yes. And that is not easy.
It's not easy at all.
Righto.
And that's why the source highlights how powerful it can be to talk to someone else,
Yeah.
like a trusted third party
Right.
who is not involved and can give you an objective opinion.
Mhm.
So that could be a different friend,
Right.
a therapist,
Yeah.
maybe a family member that you really trust.
Someone who can give you that outside view.
Yeah, sometimes we need that. to
Yes.
see the forest for the trees.
It's like you're trying to solve this really complicated math problem,
Yeah.
and you just need a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah,
See the mistake that you keep making.
exactly.
You're down.
You can't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like having somebody there to bounce ideas off of to
Mm.
help you kind of sort through all those emotions
Right.
and all those like conflicting loyalties you're feeling.
Yeah.
Speaking of sorting things through,
Yeah.
the source actually suggests something kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know, before you decide to tell the partner or not,
Mm-hmm.
have you thought about talking to your friend? So the idea is that you'd express that you're concerned,
Right.
but you don't reveal that you know about the infidelity.
Right.
So maybe you say something like,
Mhm.
you know, I've noticed that you seem really stressed lately. Is everything okay in your relationship?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a way of like
Yeah.
opening the door
Right.
so that maybe they confide in you and
Right.
maybe even come clean on their own.
Giving them a chance.
Yes. You know, to kind of right their wrongs. Yeah. So it's less about like dropping a truth bomb on them
Right.
and more about like gently nudging them in the right direction.
Right.
But let's be real.
Okay.
Whether you tell the partner or not,
Yeah.
whether your friend fesses up or keeps lying,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be an aftermath to this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And the source makes it pretty clear you can't avoid the consequences.
That's where things get really tricky.
Yeah.
The source is very, very clear that no matter what you choose,
Mm-hmm.
there will be consequences.
Yeah.
You know, you could get anger from your friend.
Uh-huh.
You could face disappointment from the partner.
Right.
It could completely, like, destroy these relationships.
Yeah, it's like this ripple effect.
Yeah.
You throw this rock in the water,
Yep.
and the waves go out and out.
Yeah, and they keep going.
Yeah, so even if you make what you feel is the right decision,
Right.
you have to be prepared
Yeah.
that there might be damage.
Yeah, you're not going to come out of this. Everyone's going to be like, yay, good job.
Yeah, nobody wins.
No.
So you have to be prepared for all that.
You really have to brace yourself for that emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things you can do
Okay.
is set boundaries,
Ooh, that's good.
right? Like with your friend and with their partner,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not responsible for fixing their problems.
Right.
And you shouldn't have to absorb all their anger.
Yeah.
Like your first responsibility is to protect yourself.
So even though you're in the thick of it, you need to create a little distance for your own well-being.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
And don't forget about self-care.
Oh, that's so important.
Yeah, whether it's talking to a therapist, journaling, spending time in nature.
Anything that brings you joy.
Yeah, you've got to take care of yourself.
Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's so true.
Right.
And something else the source mentions is that honesty and clear communication are so important.
Yes, even when it's difficult.
Yes.
So, like, if you decide to tell the partner,
Mm-hmm.
explain why you're doing it,
Uh-huh.
but do it calmly and with compassion.
Yeah.
And if you decide to stay silent,
Okay.
be honest with your friend about that.
Right.
Tell them why you made that decision.
So even if people disagree or even if they're hurt,
Mm-hmm.
at least they know where you're coming from.
Yes. Transparency can really help to preserve relationships,
Yeah, even if things are a little rocky.
even if they're strained.
And this is a really important point that the source makes.
Okay.
There's no right answer here.
There isn't. It's not like a
Yeah.
math equation where,
Yes.
you know, you just plug in the numbers and you get the answer.
Exactly what might be the best thing for one person
Right.
could be totally wrong for someone else.
It depends on your values
Yeah.
and your understanding of what's happening.
So it's really about looking at everything,
Mhm.
thinking about the consequences,
Yeah.
and then making a choice
Right.
that you feel good about.
That feels right in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And accepting that there might not be a perfect solution.
There probably won't be,
Yeah.
you know?
So it's messy.
It's messy.
Yeah, relationships are messy.
They are.
Yeah.
They're complicated.
And that's why this deep dive is so valuable.
I think so.
Yeah. It's not about telling you what to do.
Right.
It's about giving you the tools.
Yeah. Giving you some insights.
Yeah, to make the best decision that you can.
Right.
Given your own situation.
It's like we've given you a flashlight
Ooh.
to help you through this really dark and twisty maze.
I like that a lot.
And hopefully
Yeah.
along the way,
Mhm.
you've learned something about yourself
Yeah.
and your values
Yeah.
and how complicated all of this is.
So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question,
Okay.
something to think about.
Okay. Hit me.
What if, instead of thinking about whether to tell the partner or not, what if you thought about how to best support everyone involved
Okay.
including yourself.
That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, how would that change things?
That really changes the whole dynamic.
It really makes you think about, like, okay, what are everyone's needs here? And how can we move forward in a way
Right.
that feels supportive and healing?
Instead of like pointing fingers
Yeah.
and placing blame.
It's more about compassion.
Exactly.
So what would that actually look like?
Yeah.
Well, for your friend, maybe you encourage them to go to therapy
Yeah.
to figure out, like, what's going on.
What led them to this place?
Yeah, why did this happen?
Right.
But at the same time, you got to hold them accountable.
Right. You can be supportive.
Yeah.
Without condoning what they did.
It's about that balance of empathy and honesty.
Exactly.
And then for the partner, maybe it just looks like being there for them.
Yeah, just listening.
Yeah, giving them a shoulder to cry on.
Holding space for them.
Yeah, whether they stay in the relationship or not.
Right, because at the end of the day,
yeah,
it's their decision.
It's their life.
You can't make it for them.
And then, of course, there's you.
Oh, yeah.
You're in the middle of all this.
We're carrying a lot.
It's emotionally draining.
It is. So remember, self-care is essential.
Talk to someone you trust. Set some boundaries.
Yes.
Do things that make you happy.
You cannot pour from an empty cup.
That's so important.
It is.
So this deep dive has really taken us on a journey.
It has.
We started by looking at the arguments for and against telling.
Right.
We thought about the consequences.
Yeah, all the different angles.
And then we even kind of pushed ourselves to think beyond that.
Beyond just tell or don't tell.
Yeah, so instead of thinking about it as like a truth bomb, it's more about how can I approach this with compassion?
Right. How can I support the people that I care about?
Yeah. And myself?
And yourself. That's right.
So it's messy.
It is.
Relationships are messy. But hopefully this conversation has given you some tools.
Some food for thought.
Yeah. And maybe a little bit of comfort.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's not a right answer.
Right.
There's just the path that feels right for you.
It's about trusting your gut.
Yeah. So if you're going through this, remember, you're not alone.
You're not.
There are people you can talk to.
Yes. And resources that can help.
And ways to protect yourself.
Don't forget that.
To be kind to yourself.
Yes.
You're doing the best that you can.
You are.
So we're going to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
We hope you found it helpful.
I hope so.
Keep those questions coming.
Yes, we love hearing from you.
And until next time, stay curious.
Stay compassionate.
And keep exploring.
We'll see you soon.